Welcome EGP learners, I'm Dr. Andy Foster and today I'm flying solo for this episode of the EGP Learning Podblast. Today I'm going to talk about my 3 top tips and principles that are helping me cope with the crisis-induced digital overload that I've found myself experiencing over the past few weeks and months. And I'll be thinking, dare I say, a little bit more analog rather than digital. Digital tools are great and have been enormously helpful during the current crisis. Let's call it the crisis for today and not dwell too much on what we're dealing with and battling with day to day. But for the last few months, it's safe to say we've all been able to spend less time in direct contact with other people. Technology has been really helpful in many ways. It's helped us stay in touch with our friends and family using new and creative tools and technologies and ways of doing that. It's kept us entertained. We've all been spending more time on streaming services, I suspect. And it's helped many of us continue to work and be effective whilst at home or in lockdown. For those of us who've been involved in the healthcare or other responses, it's been really valuable to help us plan and deliver responses to the crisis. Digital tools such as messaging apps and video meetings have helped us to achieve really impressive things in really short time periods. In general practice, we've transformed how people access their GP, and we've been designing and delivering new services with just a few weeks' notice to help us deal with people affected by the crisis. In fact, we've probably all been spending a lot more time in the digital space than ever before. Digital tools are awesome, and Gandhi and I spend a lot of time, and our guests spend a lot of time talking about how useful they are, but you can have too much of a good thing. Like many of us, I think I've begun to experience digital overload. This got me thinking, why am I feeling this way and what can I do about it? Digital systems have a lot of great properties, and this isn't a comprehensive list, but these properties include infinite storage. They can store an infinite amount of information. They are instant and they are always on and always present. And this is great, but they can have some negative flip sides. The human brain, the human mind doesn't work in the same way as a digital system. Of course, how the brain works to produce consciousness is not fully understood. It shares, but it is known that it shares some of the characteristics with digital processing and also with some analog systems, and it's certainly biological. It is not the same as a digital computer, and we shouldn't try and be digital or keep up with our computers. I think acknowledging these differences can give us some actionable insights into how to use digital tools better, and perhaps even in some cases, we might find that older tools might be even better or therapeutic for certain tasks. So, here are some things that I've been doing over the past few months that I think have been helping and that might help other people out there dealing with the same issues. Number 1, embrace finite limited storage. And this can be, one good way of doing this is to help focus the mind with a paper journal. So over the past 2 years or so, maybe longer, I've been noticing that some of those really effective and successful people that I meet and that I work with have been carrying paper journals, notepads, daybooks, and they've been making handwritten notes in them. And I've watched with interest. It sometimes puzzled me. I've been there with my iPad and my phone and using that. But even recently, I've started to see Gandhi, of all people, carrying around a bound paper book and making notes with a pen and paper. The personal productivity community has been talking a lot about journaling and pen and paper for a while. So I decided in about November last year to see what all the fuss is about and get myself a paper journal. And I'm still using it. And in fact, too many bits of paper, but here it is, holding it up for the camera there. You can see it's a little bit battered and worn. You can see the signs of use. Now, I'm a bit of a personal productivity enthusiast, and prior to this, I'd spent years looking for the perfect to-do list app or the personal productivity app, and I never really stuck with anything. It's really attractive to have the opportunity to capture everything, all your thoughts, ideas, all the things you could possibly do, and set up endless ways of categorizing them and tagging them and contacts and so forth. But despite it all sounding very useful, I never stuck with anything. There are so many ways and exercises and techniques that you can use a journal to help keep yourself productive and sane. You can start simple and you can develop and redevelop the systems that work for you. Here are some exercises that I like to do with my journal. I do more than this, but once a week I do a stock take of all my roles and responsibilities and where I feel I'm at with those. I take a double A5 spread and write out my various jobs, roles, different hats that I wear. Then I note down what I need to do in each of these areas. Also note down what I might want to do in each of these areas to really move those areas forwards. You can use a coloured pen or other technique to add emphasis or choose where to add focus to these things. The beauty here is that there's only so much space on the paper and you can only write so small. So just like we only have so much time in our life and space in our heads, there is only so much space on the paper. So you can really avoid being overloaded. Where there's infinite storage space, I used to find that my to-do list would just grow and grow and grow. But here, if it doesn't fit on the A5 bit of paper, then it doesn't make it on the list. And you have to be selective about what you're going to do. If your life won't fit on 2 A5 double pieces of paper, an A4 piece of paper, even if you write really small, then you've probably got too much going on. And this sort of technique helps remind us of that. You can also use all sorts of other techniques to reflect on life. Plan your day, show gratitude, draw diagrams, draw tables, graphical representations of things and concepts that might be on your mind. Draw pictures. So whilst pen and paper are limiting in some ways, particularly in terms of the storage, it's extremely flexible in other ways, and you don't have to learn the settings or the tools to do any of these diagrams or pictures. You already know how to use a pen and pencil and paper, so it's a really good learning curve. Also, you can't cut and paste your list from one week to another. So you have to rewrite your list periodically. And this takes time, it takes attention, and it really helps focus and refocus on what's important. So I've been finding embracing finite storage and focusing with a pen and paper journal really, really helpful. Next, number 2, let things wait. So digital is instant, it's always there, but it is possible to let things wait and use the tools that are out there to manage the notification. So this is a tip that you hear all the time in personal productivity and management and time management seminars and articles. But it's something I really struggled with, and I think a lot of people really struggle with it because it actually took a conversation with a professional coach on a leadership course recently to give me the courage to actually switch off the Outlook email notifications on my phone. From my NHS mail. These notifications in email apps and in WhatsApp and in all the other messaging apps, I think really speak to a fundamental human fear, or at least for me they do, and that's the fear of missing out. People call it FOMO, don't they, at the moment? What if I miss an important message? What if I'm not as up to speed with an issue as my colleagues? What if I miss a chance to contribute to a fast evolving conversation that might be important? It's always good to be on top, but notifications had me checking my phone for email and WhatsApp messages really regularly throughout the day, too often. And I found myself feeling quite anxious, struggling to keep on top of the messages, struggling to respond immediately sometimes. And it was interfering with my ability to focus on other tasks. So after speaking with the coach, plucking up the courage, and it did take that for me to pluck up the courage, despite knowing that it would probably be a helpful thing to do, I switched off my notifications and for the email. I found that I felt a lot calmer. Those things that are important, like email and WhatsApp groups, I check once, a few times a day. I think I feared that I wouldn't, but I do. And actually, when I check them, I'm not trying to do anything else with that time. I'm not in the middle of doing anything else. I'm often at my own desk with a proper keyboard, at my desktop computer in my home office or at work. And I've actually been able to be more effective, I think, in responding to things, more considered and provide more comprehensive and thoughtful responses. So I think it's actually helped me be more effective. Another bonus is that often you find that all sorts of things that have come up have already blown over, and other people have actually dealt with things and sorted out problems whilst you were off being productive and doing other things. So that's definitely a bonus. I'm sure, like me, you're all able to find the relevant settings on your device to do this. What the barrier is often is finding the courage to actually take the plunge. That's the hard part. So find the courage to let things wait and manage your notifications more effectively. Third tip, digital devices are always on, and that's a great thing. They're always there when we need them, but we are biological We do not always need to be on. Don't always be on. Switch off and use the do not disturb functions on devices. So the digital world is always there. It never stops. That's great. Emails can be sent, can be read, can be replied to 24/7, but people cannot be on all the time. We're not robots. I'm not a robot, at least. Some people look like they are. I'm sure they're not. Nikki Kanani, I'm looking at you and your social media activity. We are complicated biological organisms, and we need to rest to be at our best when we need to be. People need to switch off. People need downtime. People need to sleep. Again, this is obvious, but I'd found it quite hard to do and quite hard to action. And I know a lot of you guys also struggle with this, because I've seen you there on WhatsApp late at night reading and responding to messages, because I've been there. I've been there too. So reaching for the off switch can feel a bit drastic and leave us worrying about what to do if there's a really important call from a family member or someone close or someone at the practice. But device managers have been giving us tools to effectively help with this for years. Apple have a do not disturb mode, and it's really configurable. Lots of options. You can set options to allow certain people or people contacting you at a certain frequency, so 3 times within 15 minutes, for example, to break through and actually get through and get a message to you. Until recently, I don't think I recognised the harm of being online all the time and what that can do. And I had a bit of fear of missing out potentially that stopped me from activating the do not disturb mode. But that is something I have activated recently. So I activate it automatically from late in the evening through to the morning. Blocks all notifications apart from those key people who can still break through and get a message to me if they need to, like certain friends, family, certain people working at the practice. And it's been really effective. Just stopping those interruptions, allowing yourself to rest, to sleep, allowing that downtime for friends, family, other activities, hobbies, dare I say, going outside, going for a walk, playing some sport. And it's actually been pretty liberating. So it's something I would also recommend. Don't always be on, switch off, use those do not disturb functions. So those were my 3 tips to think a little bit more analog, a little bit more biological about how you interface with the technology we've all been using more of recently. Thanks very much for joining me. I'm wondering whether you guys have been doing these things already. Maybe you've been doing them for a long time. Have you been finding these effective? What else have you tried to manage digital stress over the last few months? And what other tips might you have for other people? So please respond, comment below on YouTube using all of the normal social media channels. Gandhi will be out there probably watching and responding to comments as well. So thank you very much for listening. And we'll be back with some more traditional content in the near future.